I remember the way Lena told me she was going to her cousin's place that Friday night. She leaned against the kitchen counter, casual, brushing her hair behind her ear, that same soft smile that always made my chest ache in the best way. "I'll be gone until Sunday," she said. "Tara invited me over for a little weekend catch-up." "Nothing major?" "Okay," I said, forcing a smile. "Sounds nice." But even as I said it, something in her eyes felt off. "Just a flicker, a shadow I couldn't place. You sure you're okay?" she asked, tilting her head. "I'm fine," I said, and I was. Or at least I tried to convince myself. "Have fun with Tara." Her lips curved into that practiced smile, and I kissed her forehead. She smelled like the vanilla lotion she always wore, and for a moment I let myself relax. I wanted to believe her. Love, after all, demanded trust. I told myself that. Later, while she packed her bag, I noticed her phone buzz twice on the counter. She picked it up, eyes flicking over the screen, then shoved it into her bag too quickly. My gut twisted. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah," she said a little too quickly. "Just a message from work." I nodded, though my stomach churned. She zipped her bag shut and gave me another soft hug. "I'll call you tomorrow morning." "Sure," I said, forcing another smile. She left, and I watched the door close behind her. Silence settled like a weight I couldn't shake. I tried to focus on my sketchbook, telling myself I was being paranoid. She's my girlfriend. She loves me. But then the little glitches started. Saturday morning, I noticed her messages weren't coming through as usual. Usually I'd wake up to a good morning text or a little thinking of you note. Nothing. Hours passed. I shrugged it off at first. Maybe she was busy. But by afternoon, I felt a twitch of worry I couldn't ignore. I tried calling her, but the line went straight to voicemail. I didn't panic, not yet, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That evening, I got a text from her phone, but the tone felt different. "Hope your day went well." It was short, clipped, almost cold. My chest tightened. I shook my head. I was imagining things. I always imagine things. I took a deep breath and tried to distract myself with work, but my eyes kept drifting to my phone. Sunday morning, the text came through all at once. A simple "heading to Tara's place now. See you later," pinged my phone. I felt the walls closing in. Something wasn't right. I wanted to call her, ask her where she really was, but the words got stuck in my throat. By Sunday evening, I couldn't stand it anymore. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, staring at the screen. Every minute felt like an eternity. When she finally called, I didn't pick up at first. I let it ring. She left a voicemail, her voice sweet, lilting, but even that didn't reach me. "Hey, love. Just got here. Everything's fine. Talk soon." I pressed the delete button, my fingers shaking. How could I explain this feeling to her without sounding insane? Without sounding like I didn't trust her at all? Monday came and the same pattern continued. Delayed texts, missed calls, little inconsistencies I couldn't ignore anymore. I tried talking to Maya about it later that week. She always had a way of putting things into perspective. "Maybe she's just tired," I said, rubbing my temples. "Maybe I'm reading too much into it." "You're not," Maya said firmly. "I can see it in your eyes. You feel it for a reason. Don't ignore it." "I can't just accuse her of anything," I said. "What if I'm wrong?" "You're not wrong," she said, her voice softening. "Trust your instincts, Aiden. Just be careful. Don't let it destroy you before you even know the truth." Her words echoed in my mind, mingling with the growing dread I felt every time I thought of Lena's casual weekend plans. That night, I found myself staring at her online status. My heart sank when I saw it. Active 2 hours ago. 2 hours ago? She's supposed to be at her cousin's. My chest felt like it had been hollowed out. I tried to calm myself, tried to tell myself it could be nothing. That maybe her cousin's Wi-Fi was weak. That maybe she'd forgotten to log out. But the seed had grown into a small, gnawing fire I couldn't ignore. I went to bed, eyes wide open, listening to the quiet of my apartment. Every creak, every shadow felt like a lie. I imagined her laughing somewhere with someone else, her smile not meant for me. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I kept picturing her eyes, that little flicker I noticed when she first told me about Tara. That spark of something hidden, and as the hours stretched on, I whispered to myself, barely audible, "How long have you been lying to me, Lena?" The question burned in my chest, unanswered, as the quiet night swallowed me whole. I was sitting on the living room couch, lazily scrolling through my phone, when Lena's device lit up beside me. A call was coming through. Ethan. I raised an eyebrow and laughed. Of course. Ethan's her coworker. She'd mentioned him 100 times. My best friend, too. It wasn't unusual. Probably just work stuff, I muttered to myself, swiping to answer. Hello? Ethan's voice sounded unusually hesitant, almost strained. Hey, it's me, I said casually. Saw your call on Lena's phone. Everything okay? There was a pause, a crack in his tone that made my stomach twist. Yeah, just wanted to check in. His voice wavered slightly, but I chalked it up to tiredness. You sound off, I said. Long day? Something like that, he murmured. Anyway, I shouldn't bother you. Just thought I'd, call. Okay, man. No worries, I said, forcing a laugh. We'll catch up soon. I hung up and leaned back, shaking my head. Maybe I was overthinking again. Ethan had always sounded dramatic. Still, something had felt off. Later that evening, Lena came home, humming quietly. She had that soft glow about her that usually made my heart ache in that good way, but tonight, it wasn't enough to settle the knot of unease in my chest. Hey, I said, standing up. How was Tara's? Oh, just catching up, she said, smiling. We went for coffee, talked about old times. Her perfume was faint but different, almost sharp. I froze for a second, trying not to let it register. Different scent today? I asked lightly, attempting normalcy. Oh, that? She waved her hand. Tara gave me some new cologne samples. Just for fun. I nodded, but the lie clung to my skin like smoke. I hugged her when she leaned in, inhaling that subtle, unfamiliar musk. My mind snapped pictures of her in that moment, every detail locked away, the angle of her smile, the weight of her arm across my shoulder, the sound of her laughter. Dinner? I asked, trying to mask the tension tightening my chest. I'm full, she said, settling onto the couch beside me. She picked up her phone and scrolled, seemingly absorbed. I watched, noting the way her fingers hovered over certain names, how she chuckled softly at some messages and ignored others. I started keeping quiet mental notes. Details I could later dismiss as paranoia, or maybe I'd need them as evidence if my instincts were right. The color of her nail polish that week. The times she texted and never explained. What she wore when she left the house. Small things at first that whispered of secrets before they screamed. Later, I found myself asking the questions in my head I didn't dare speak aloud. Was she lying to me? Had Ethan's call meant something? Why did her laugh sound different that night? I tried to brush it off. I'm imagining things, I told myself. It's nothing. She's my girlfriend. She loves me. She's been nothing but honest. But that thought barely held. That night, I stayed up longer than usual. My mind replayed Ethan's shaky voice, Lena's altered perfume, the little glances she gave at her phone. Each fragment stacked together, forming a small pyramid of doubt I couldn't ignore. I need to see if I'm crazy, I muttered, reaching for a notebook. I wrote down times she left the room, phrases she avoided, inconsistencies in her stories. Tiny details that might mean nothing or might mean everything. Why am I even doing this? I whispered, running my hand through my hair. I trust her. But I feel like I don't. How can I feel both at once? The words tasted bitter on my tongue, even unspoken. My chest tightened, and I realized that the betrayal hadn't arrived yet. It was just whispering, brushing against the edges of my mind, testing how much I could take before it screamed. I tried to shake it off, lying in bed as the hum of the city outside filled the apartment. Every shadow in the room looked suspicious. Every sound became a question mark. Her door creaked in the wind, and I imagined her talking, laughing. Not with me. I forced myself to close my eyes, repeating over and over, "It's nothing. She loves me. It's just paranoia." But the truth gnawed at me from the inside. The missed call, the smell of someone else's cologne, the way she seemed slightly distant. It was a puzzle I couldn't stop solving, even if I didn't want to know the final picture. I took another breath and whispered into the darkness, "I'm not crazy. Something's wrong, and I'll find out what it is." Sleep finally came, shallow and interrupted, as the first seeds of doubt settled permanently in my mind. That night, betrayal didn't scream, it whispered. But the whispers were loud enough to echo through every corner of my heart. I was barely holding it together at work. My thoughts kept drifting, eyes glazing over spreadsheets I'd already memorized. Jacob, ever observant, noticed my distraction. "You've been off all week," he said, leaning against my cubicle. "Coffee later?" My treat. I hesitated, the knot in my stomach tightening. "Sure, yeah. I need a break anyway." Later, we sat at the small cafe down the street. The smell of roasted beans mixed with the chatter of other patrons, but I barely noticed. "You okay?" Jacob asked, stirring his cup. "You seem haunted," I laughed, a short, brittle sound. "Haunted? Maybe, I don't know. It's Lena. She's acting strange, and I can't—" "Whoa, slow down," he interrupted, raising his hands. "Talk to me. What's going on?" I ran my fingers through my hair, staring at the coffee, pretending the swirl in the cup made sense. She said she was going to her cousin's for the weekend. But there are things that don't add up. Phone off at odd hours, messages disappearing, perfumes that aren't hers. Jacob frowned, leaning back. "And you think she's cheating?" "I don't want to think it," I admitted quietly, voice barely above a whisper. "But my instincts are screaming. I don't know what to believe anymore." He studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You know her better than anyone. Trust your gut, but don't let it destroy you before you know the truth." I smiled faintly, appreciating his advice, yet the unease lingered like a shadow across my chest. That evening, Mrs. Collins came by to check the pipes in my apartment. She always had a sharp eye for the comings and goings in the building. "Ah, Mr. Aiden," she began, adjusting her spectacles. "You've been busy, I see. I noticed Lena leaving earlier with a tall man in a black hoodie. Thought I'd mention it." I froze mid-breath. "Oh, really?" I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "Probably just a friend from work or something." "She does have friends?" Yes, I suppose," she said, humming and moving toward the door. "But you be careful, dear. You know I've seen a lot in my day." I closed the door slowly, pressing my forehead against the cool wood. My heart raced. A tall man in a black hoodie. My mind refused to name him, yet I knew. The next few days were a haze. I avoided texting Lena, avoided checking my messages, but curiosity and dread kept me glued to our shared tablet. It auto-synced her cloud photos, and I tried to resist looking, tried to avoid the inevitable. Then it happened. A notification popped up, new photo uploaded. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. I swiped. The image was blurry, taken from behind a cafe window or perhaps a parking lot. But it didn't matter. Ethan's tattoo, unmistakable and familiar, flashed on his arm. The angle of his shoulder, the posture, even the shade of his hoodie, it all confirmed what I had refused to acknowledge. I dropped the tablet onto the couch, stomach twisting. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It had a face. My best friend, laughing beside her as if they'd shared some secret I wasn't supposed to know. I sank to the floor, staring at the hardwood, willing the image to disappear. It didn't. Every memory of Ethan's easy smile, of late-night talks and laughter over beers, now felt like a cruel mockery. I picked up the tablet again, staring at it, heart hammering. "How could you?" I whispered to the empty room. My voice sounded small, lost in the echo of my thoughts. "How could you, Ethan?" A part of me wanted to confront her immediately, scream, demand answers. But another part, the part that had been quietly observing, noting, remembering, told me to hold back. Evidence before confrontation. Patience before destruction. I sat there for hours, the blurred photo glowing on the screen like a wound I couldn't close. I memorized the details, his tattoo, the curl of her hair over his shoulder, the tilt of their heads toward each other. Every second felt like a betrayal repeated. I thought of Jacob's words. "Trust your gut. Don't destroy yourself before you know the truth." My gut had spoken. The truth was undeniable, yet amidst the rage and heartbreak, a cold clarity settled in. I needed to prepare, to see the full extent of the betrayal before making a move. Anger could wait. The story needed patience, and patience meant power. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, mind spinning through every detail I had ever ignored, every red flag I had brushed off. Ethan's face, Lena's smile in the photo, the way she had been so casual, so gentle, yet completely dishonest. I whispered into the darkness, voice hoarse. "This isn't over." "Not yet, but I'll see it through. I'll understand it all before I decide what comes next." The photo remained on the tablet beside me, glowing faintly in the dim light. I didn't delete it. I couldn't, not yet. I needed to remember everything, to feel the betrayal fully, so that when the time came, I would act without hesitation, without doubt. The night stretched on, long and heavy, and for the first time I realized the betrayal wasn't just about Lena. It was about everyone I had trusted, and that realization burned deeper than any heartbreak I had ever known. I rehearsed the confrontation in my mind over and over. Every word, every pause, every accusation perfectly timed. "Lena, I know what's going on," I whispered to myself at least 100 times in front of the mirror. I pictured her shock, her guilt, her confession. Each scenario ended the same way, me finally knowing the truth. But when I stood in the doorway, my mouth dry, my palms sweaty, I couldn't. Not a single word came out. My chest tightened, and I swallowed the lump of anger and hurt. Instead, I smiled, kissed her lightly on the cheek, and asked, "How was your day?" She smiled back, a little strained. "It was fine, just work stuff." Boring." I nodded, pretending to listen, though my mind cataloged everything. Her tone, her hesitation, the slight blush that rose when she avoided eye contact. Every small gesture was a clue, a whisper of betrayal I wasn't ready to confront yet. Days passed like this. I played the role of the loving boyfriend perfectly, laughing when she joked, holding her hand when she reached for mine. But beneath it I was observing, noting, cataloging. The patterns grew clearer, her late nights, the way she suddenly turned the conversation when I asked something too personal, the faint scent of cologne that wasn't hers lingering in our bedroom. One evening, she snapped at me for no reason. "You're too much sometimes," she said, rolling her eyes. "I can't even watch a show in peace." I froze, but I didn't reply. Instead, I smiled, kept my tone gentle. "Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, I just missed you." Her jaw tightened, and she walked past me without another word. I watched her leave the room, every step fueling the fire in my chest, yet I stayed silent. I wanted to see how deep this went, to watch the cracks widen before acting. Maya came over that weekend. Her eyes were sharp, always noticing what I tried to hide. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, arms crossed. "You look exhausted," she said, eyes flicking toward Lena's empty chair. "Talk to her. Seriously. You can't just sit there pretending everything's fine while she—" "I need to see how deep this goes first," I interrupted softly, trying to keep my voice calm. "If I confront her now, I'll never know the full truth." "I have to watch, Maya. I have to." Her expression softened, but worry remained. "Aiden, don't let this eat you alive. You're better than staying silent while she—" "I know," I said, cutting her off gently. "But patience matters. I need clarity before action. I promise I'm not ignoring it. I'm watching. That's all." She sighed and shook her head, leaving me with my silence and my thoughts. Alone, I wandered through the apartment, picking up objects she'd left behind. A scarf on the chair, a coffee mug half full, a lipstick stain on a napkin. Each item whispered the life she led that I couldn't see. Nights were the worst. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining the confrontation I refused to have. Every time I thought I could act, a part of me froze, wondering if my assumptions were too hasty, if my mind was tricking me. And then, it happened. I woke in the middle of the night to the softest whisper. At first I thought it was a dream, my imagination running wild. But then I heard it again. Her voice barely audible. "Ethan!" "I can't stop thinking about you." I froze under the covers, heart hammering. The room was dark, the shadows long, but the words burned brighter than any light. Ethan's name, she had whispered it in her sleep. My mind replayed it, dissected it, clinging to every syllable. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. I just listened, trying to comprehend what I had heard. My hands were trembling, but I stayed silent. Not a single word escaped my lips. Morning came with the usual sounds, coffee brewing, distant traffic, but the weight of the night stayed with me. I watched her from across the room as she stretched, yawning, oblivious to the fact that my world had tilted again. "Morning," I said softly, forcing cheer into my voice. "Morning," she replied, brushing her hair back. "You slept well?" I nodded, studying her as she moved around. Every gesture, every glance was a puzzle I had yet to solve completely. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to confront her with the whisper I had heard. But I didn't. I couldn't. I reminded myself that my role wasn't over, that my observation was necessary. I needed the full picture before any confrontation, before any decision. Days blurred into each other, tension building like a storm gathering strength. I caught her glances at her phone, the tiny smiles when she thought I wasn't looking, the sighs she tried to hide. Each one added weight to the truth I was piecing together. By nightfall, I sat alone on the couch, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I repeated Ethan's name in my head, tasting the bitterness it carried. The betrayal wasn't complete yet, but the evidence was stacking up. I felt the shift in the air, the heavy pulse of truth approaching. I whispered into the darkness, voice low, almost a growl. One day, Lena, I'll see everything. I'll know everything. And when I do, nothing will ever be the same. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. But I stayed there, waiting, watching, letting the suspense build. The confrontation never happened, not yet. But the seeds were planted, the storm was coming, and I was ready to see it through, one quiet, tense observation at a time. The rain came down in sheets that night, blurring the city lights into streaks of red and yellow. I sat in my car, engine idling, and watched Lena walk down the street. She had told me she was staying at her cousin Tara's place again, but something inside me had been gnawing for days. The feeling refused to let go. I followed. Her umbrella bobbed in the wind, but she didn't glance back once. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. Stay calm, I whispered to myself, voice lost in the sound of rain. Just watch, observe. She entered a small cafe across town, the kind with warm lights and quiet corners. I parked a block away, heart hammering in my chest. I could see her through the window, laughing lightly. And then he walked in, Ethan, my best friend, the name I'd trusted, the one that had felt like home. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass of the car. No, it can't be, I murmured. But it was. They sat in the corner, close, leaning toward each other. I watched Lena tuck her hair behind her ear, a gesture I'd thought was just for me. Ethan smiled, that crooked grin that had once made me laugh with him on lazy afternoons. Now it cut me like a knife. Did you get my message? She asked softly. He nodded, voice low, laughing quietly. Yeah, it was perfect. I can't believe we pulled it off. I blinked, disoriented. Perfect, pulled it off? I gripped the camera I kept in the glove compartment and started recording. Every word, every glance, every movement. I didn't confront them. I couldn't. My chest felt like it would cave in, but I stayed still, letting the evidence build. They leaned closer, heads almost touching, and I could see it, the way she looked at him. Not with friendship, not with familiarity, but something warmer, something intimate that belonged to someone else. My stomach turned. I missed you today, she whispered. Ethan's hand brushed hers, casual, familiar. I missed you too, he said, voice quiet, just for her. The words echoed in my mind as I sat in the rain, watching, listening, feeling my world unravel. Every laugh, every touch, every whispered secret was a betrayal written in real time. I forced myself to stay, to document everything. The proof would matter later, even if my heart couldn't. Even if my trust was already lying in pieces on the wet pavement outside. When they finally stood and left, Lena clutching her purse like nothing had happened, I waited until they were gone. My hands were shaking, the camera slipping from my grip once, but I caught it. My heart was racing, yet my mind worked mechanically, cataloging every second. I started the engine and drove away, headlights cutting through the rain. The city blurred past me as I drove aimlessly, following no route, no purpose other than to escape myself. I muttered to the empty car. How could they? How could both of you do this? The rain pelted the windshield, matching the pounding of my heart. I replayed every moment in my head, every missed glance, every little lie I had ignored, every whisper of suspicion I'd buried. They were all true, all of it. I passed familiar streets, empty cafes, neon signs reflecting in puddles. My chest ached, tears mixing with rain on my cheeks. I had no words, no screams left in me. Just the quiet understanding that trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. Why me? I whispered, voice raw, lost in the rhythm of windshield wipers. Hours passed. I didn't stop. The car became a coffin of silence, broken only by the hum of tires and the occasional horn. I didn't call Maya. I didn't call anyone. There was no one to tell. No one who could understand the weight of what I had just seen. Dawn was pale when I finally noticed it, light creeping over the horizon, painting the wet streets in muted gold. I was parked on the bridge, staring at the river, letting the cold water below mirror the emptiness inside me. My phone vibrated, a message from Lena. I didn't look. I couldn't. It was irrelevant now. Words didn't matter. The betrayal had already done its work. The trust I had built, the love I had nurtured, all of it died somewhere between the raindrops and the headlights, between the whispers and the quiet laughter I had recorded. I sat there until the sun rose fully, watching the world wake up, feeling like I was still trapped in darkness. When I finally started the car again, I knew nothing would be the same. Nothing. I whispered into the cold morning air, almost to myself, almost to the city. Some things you just can't come back from. The rain had stopped, but the ache remained. Every turn, every reflection in the puddles reminded me. This night, this betrayal was a point of no return, and I somehow had to survive it. I stopped answering. Every text from Lena went unanswered. Calls were ignored, left to ring until voicemail swallowed them. Ethan tried too, or at least I imagined he might, but I didn't care. I became a ghost in my own life, drifting silently through rooms where laughter once lived. Maya came over one evening, knocking on the apartment door. I let her in, but didn't greet her with a smile. "Aiden, you've barely talked to me all week," she said, eyes scanning the dim room. "I'm fine," I muttered, sitting on the edge of the sofa, staring at the floor. The rain streaked against the window outside, echoing the emptiness inside me. "You're not fine," she insisted. "I can see it. Stop hiding from everyone." I shook my head. "I need space. I can't deal with them. I can't deal with anyone right now." She knelt beside me, placing a hand over mine. "You don't have to deal with them, but you can't just vanish either." Holding it all in, "It's eating you alive." I didn't answer. I didn't want to. My focus had shifted inward, toward a survival instinct I didn't know I possessed. I started therapy with Dr. Hale the next day. "Anger buried is anger that controls you without permission," Dr. Hale said, leaning back in her chair as I recounted the night I saw them together. My hand shook, gripping the edges of the couch. "I don't want to feel it," I admitted. "I don't want this pain to define me." "Pain defines you only if you let it," she replied. "Forgiveness isn't for them, Aiden, it's for you. Let go, not because they deserve it, but because you do." Her words didn't heal me instantly. They were seeds, small and quiet, planted in a soil hardened by betrayal. I began to confront my anger, not to excuse what happened, but to reclaim the life they tried to steal. Work became my refuge. Each morning I arrived early, staying late, focusing on projects with a precision that surprised my colleagues. Jacob noticed the change. "You're different," he said one day. "Something shifted," I shrugged. "Maybe I've just realized what matters." He didn't press, but I felt it, my transformation quietly happening. The fire of betrayal didn't consume me anymore. It fueled me. Lena's messages piled up on my phone, missed calls, anxious texts, frantic explanations. I didn't open them. Her anxiety was music I no longer wanted to hear. Ethan's name surfaced occasionally, through mutual friends or a gossiping coworker, and each mention was another reminder of the chaos I'd left behind. One evening, Maya visited again. She perched on the armrest of my chair, watching me sort through paperwork with deliberate calm. "You've changed," she said. "The anger. It's still there, but you've learned to control it." "I've had to," I muttered, glancing at the clock. Lena's world and Ethan's is starting to crumble. I hear whispers, rumors of fights, trust breaking in their own lives. Karma, silent but undeniable, is finally stepping in. Maya leaned forward. "You're doing this for yourself, not for revenge, right?" I paused, thinking about every sleepless night, every silent drive through the rain, every note I had kept of their betrayal. "It's not revenge," I said quietly. "It's survival. It's reclaiming what they tried to destroy." Her eyes softened. "Good, don't let them steal your soul." "Don't let them win." I nodded, feeling the weight of the past months shifting. For the first time, I didn't feel consumed by rage. I felt focused, deliberate. Every step I took was toward rebuilding myself, not tearing them down. Dr. Hale had given me exercises, journaling my emotions, facing my anger in controlled bursts, imagining the forgiveness I didn't feel yet. At first I resisted, but slowly, the act of acknowledging my pain without letting it dictate my life became empowering. I started working out, running at dawn, the cold air filling my lungs, pushing the darkness out. My apartment no longer felt like a mausoleum of memories. I rearranged it, cleaned, threw out old gifts, reminders of a love that had turned into betrayal. One evening, I checked my phone out of habit. Lena had texted again. "Please, I need to explain." I stared at the words, thumb hovering over the screen. My chest no longer ached at her attempts. I put the phone down, smiling faintly to myself. The power of silence was stronger than any argument I could make. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to my quiet transformation. Inside, I finally felt like I was reclaiming my life, one breath at a time, one moment at a time. I had become a ghost to them, yes, but in that ghost I found clarity, strength, and the beginnings of peace. Karma was real. It was subtle, patient, and necessary, but I didn't need it to punish them. The real victory was that I was no longer their victim. I whispered into the empty apartment, almost as if the walls could hear me. I am still here. I'm still whole, and I will not be broken again. Jacob called me that morning, his voice unusually careful over the phone. "Aiden, you might want to sit down for this." I frowned, grabbing a chair and letting myself drop into it. "What is it?" I asked, sensing the tension in his tone. "Ethan, he lost his job. Company found out about, well, and Lena, she's been evicted. Landlord gave her 2 weeks. I felt my chest tighten, but there was no shock this time, just quiet understanding, like the universe was settling accounts on its own. "So, karma?" I asked softly. Jacob chuckled, a little bitter. Softly, maybe, but yeah. "It's working," I hung up, staring at the wall. I didn't feel satisfaction, not in the fiery, vengeful way I used to. It was calm, quiet, observing without needing to intervene. I had done nothing, and yet justice or something like it had arrived. A week later, Lena called. I ignored it. Then twice more. The last time, her voice on the voicemail was trembling. "Aiden, please, just meet me. I need to explain." I sat with the phone in my hand longer than I cared to admit. Finally, I texted back. "Once, cafe at 3 p.m. tomorrow." She responded immediately. "Thank you. I won't ruin it." The next day, I arrived early. The cafe smelled of coffee and baked bread, sunlight spilling through tall windows. She was already there, sitting at a corner table, hands wrapped around a cup. Her hair was pulled back loosely, and I noticed the faint lines around her eyes. Time had not been kind. When she looked up, her eyes widened. "Aiden," she whispered. Her voice cracked, and for a brief second, the old warmth I had felt returned. But it was fleeting. I reminded myself why I was here. I slid into the chair opposite her. "Lena," I said quietly. She looked down, then back at me. I'm sorry," she said, voice thick with regret. "Everything I did..." "I can't..." "Stop," I interrupted softly. "Just stop." She blinked, confused, and I continued. "You told me you were with your cousin, and you were just not the kind I expected." Her eyes filled, tears threatening, and she swallowed hard. "Aiden, I held up a hand, stopping her. "I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to forgive. I'm here to see the truth of you, and I do. It's right there in your eyes." She bit her lip, trying to speak, but words faltered. I could see the guilt, the shame, the realization that she had lost not just a relationship, but the trust and respect she could never reclaim. "You think crying fixes anything?" I asked quietly, leaning back. "That your tears erase months of lies?" Her shoulders shook. You don't get to just cry and expect the world to hand you forgiveness," I said. My voice was calm, but each word carried weight. "I've listened. I've understood, and now I leave it there." Her tears spilled freely, streaking down her cheeks. I didn't look at her face, didn't allow her to see the faint smile tugging at mine. It was a small victory, not in cruelty, but in reclaiming peace. "You lost more than you can know," I said softly. "And yet, I won't let it touch me anymore." She nodded, silent, chest heaving. The apology she couldn't finish hung between us like smoke, filling the air without burning me. I stood then, slipping a few bills onto the table. She didn't reach for them, didn't ask about paying. The cafe noises faded around us, and all I heard was the quiet beat of my own heart, steady and unafraid. I hope you learn from this, I said, more to the universe than to her. I hope you understand what trust really costs, she whispered. Aiden? I shook my head gently, already moving toward the door. No, you've said enough. I'm done listening. Outside, the air was crisp, carrying the faint smell of rain from last night. I breathed deeply, feeling a weight lift from my chest, a lightness I hadn't known since the day I discovered the truth. Jacob's words from weeks ago returned. Karma works softly, patiently, sometimes without us even noticing. Lena had felt it. Ethan had felt it, and I didn't need it to complete me. I had already completed myself. I walked down the street, sunlight warming my face. The betrayal that had once consumed me now felt distant, almost unreal. I could hear Lena's muffled sobs behind me, but it didn't matter. The silence between us was more powerful than any argument, any confrontation. Somewhere deep inside, I realized the final truth. Revenge is unnecessary when life itself delivers justice. And for the first time, I felt whole. The street stretched before me, quiet, welcoming. I walked with steady steps, each one lighter than the last, each one carrying me further from the past. I didn't look back, I didn't need to. I stepped into the apartment, the key cold in my hand, and felt a strange mix of anticipation and calm. The space was small, modest, but for the first time in months it felt like mine. Empty walls and bare floors whispered possibilities. I set my bag down and ran a hand over the desk. A small photograph stared back at me as a teenager, naive and full of hope. I smiled faintly. That boy deserved better than the heartbreak that had nearly consumed me. I unpacked slowly, organizing only the essentials. Each item I placed was deliberate, a quiet reclamation of control. The apartment smelled faintly of fresh paint, but also freedom. I sank into the armchair by the window and let my eyes wander outside. The city moved, oblivious, but for the first time I felt outside of the chaos. Then my phone buzzed. I hesitated. The name made my chest tighten, Lena. I opened the message. It was brief, almost fragile. I miss you. I stared at it, reading it again. The words that once would have twisted my insides now barely moved me. I didn't reply. I didn't even type. I set the phone down, untouched, as if the silence could speak louder than any words I could muster. Maya had called last week, her voice concerned. Aiden, you can't just vanish forever. You need people around you. I know, I said, but the truth was I needed space, not company. I needed the quiet to hear myself think, to let the storm inside me settle into calm waters. Later, Jacob stopped by, curious about the move. This is different, he said, looking around. I didn't think you'd ever choose peace over rage. I didn't, I admitted, smiling slightly. I chose me. That's the difference, he raised an eyebrow. And Lena, Ethan? I shook my head. They'll find their own way. I'm done carrying their consequences in my chest. The rain started that afternoon, soft at first, then heavier. I pulled the chair closer to the window, letting droplets blur the city lights. The sound was soothing this time, not oppressive. It wrapped around me, washing away the tension that had coiled in my shoulders for months. I opened my journal. The pages were blank, expectant. I picked up my pen and began to write. I used to think love was about holding on. Turns out it's about letting go before it destroys you. I paused, reading it over. The words felt like a key turning in a lock somewhere deep inside me. Every tear I had shed, every sleepless night, every moment of rage and despair, it had led me here. And now finally I could breathe. A knock on the door startled me. I opened it to find Maya holding coffee, smiling faintly. You okay? She asked. I nodded, gesturing for her to sit. I've never been better. She looked around, taking in the sparse apartment. It suits you, simple, clean, like your mind finally has space. I chuckled softly. I needed that. Space to heal, space to breathe, space to remember who I am without them in the background. She handed me a cup. To moving on, she said, clinking it gently against mine. To moving on, I echoed, letting warmth spread through me, not just from the coffee, but from the acknowledgement that life could continue without the pain defining it. Hours passed quietly. I didn't need distractions or chatter. I just wrote, sometimes paused to stare out at the rain, and sometimes simply listened to the silence. And with every passing minute, the weight I had carried for so long seemed to lift a little more. At one point, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Lena. "I hope you're happy, truly." I smiled faintly, shaking my head. "I am," I whispered. And I meant it. Not happiness built from revenge or validation, but a deep-rooted contentment that came from reclaiming myself. I closed the journal, leaving it open on the desk. The photograph of younger me caught my eye again. I traced the edges with my finger. That boy had survived betrayal, lies, and heartbreak, and so had I. He would grow up to be wiser, stronger, and unafraid of silence. The rain pattered harder, drumming against the window, but this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was cleansing. Every drop felt like a memory rinsed from my mind, a sorrow dissolved into the earth outside. I leaned back, eyes closed, and let it wash over me completely. No messages, no confrontations, no lingering doubts. Just me, the rain, and a quiet satisfaction that came from knowing I had survived and, more importantly, I had chosen peace over chaos. I breathed in deeply, feeling the rhythm of the storm match the rhythm of my heart. For the first time in a long time, I felt whole. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled softly. I smiled, letting it remind me that storms pass, and when they do, what's left isn't ruin, it's renewal. I opened my eyes and looked around my new apartment. The silence was no longer empty, it was alive. And in that soundless space, I finally heard myself again,